If you have ever been out on a boat and been lucky enough to spot a whale feeding, there's a good chance you've seen a legion of seabirds accompanying them. These animals are known to take advantage of such feedings, either scooping up fish pushed up to the surface from below, or feasting on any dead or injured prey left behind after a lunge. After all, if you can get someone else to do all the work for you, why wouldn't you? Well, some minke whales might have learned how to turn the tides. Today, we'll be focusing on the interactions between seabirds of the Alcididae family, also known as auks, and minke whales.
Minke whales are a part of a cetacean group known as rorquals, which refers to the pleats of their throats that expand when they feed, allowing water and prey to rush in. They employ a strategy known as lunging, where they build up a burst of speed and rush towards their prey near or at the surface, mouth wide open. Instead of teeth, these whales have a unique filtering structure in their mouth called baleen plates, comprised of keratin, the same material that makes up our hair or nails. How would you feel if you had a mouthful of hair? Well, these whales use it to filter out all that water they swallow up and leave behind the good stuff, including small fish and krill.
Alcids, also known as auks, are a family of seabirds that rely solely on the ocean for their food resources. This reliance on diving as their primary foraging strategy has driven them to evolve a football-like body shape with short wings that are set further back on their bodies. These adaptations have made them excellent divers and swimmers, and, like penguins, they can use their wings to propel them forward through the water. Diving depths are species dependent, but can reach depths up to 180 meters. These excellent diving skills allow them to utilize V or U-shaped dives underneath schools of forage fish before employing tactics like blowing bubbles to startle fish and drive them towards the surface. When startled, these fishes form tight swirling schools, also known as bait balls, to minimize the chances of an individual fish being caught. Unfortunately for the fish, these densely packed schools provide easy targets for birds to spear through in order to grab fish in their beaks. As you might imagine, this can attract some unwanted guests, perhaps the most surprising of which being baleen whales.
In a scientific study between 1980 and 1984, scientists observed minke whales around the San Juan Islands exhibiting an interesting behavior. While some of the minkes employed the lunge feeding strategy typical to their species, a few of the individuals were observed essentially using seabirds as food patch indicators. These whales were seen actively intercepting auks and gulls who were already feeding at or right below the surface, taking their bait ball right out from under them. Instead of seeking out the food themselves, the whales likely observed that the birds would corral the fish into those tight schools for them, where they could engage in a lunge and swallow up the majority of the meal for themselves. The scientists found that while the patch quality of these bait balls seemed to be lower than that of areas where typical lunging took place, the energy spent utilizing this method was equally decreased, implying that exploiting bait balls is likely beneficial to the minkes. Another study that took place in the Atlantic in 2011 found a strong association between the presence of auks and minke whales at feeding sites. As auks were not seen following or pursuing the minkes, and given their short wings and associated energy requirements, it was unlikely that they were arriving to a pre-prepared feast. Physical observations of the minkes by scientists following them in boats also ruled out the possibility that the minkes were herding the fish to the surface themselves, and instead, the whales were taking advantage of all the hard work completed by the birds prior to their arrival. While it's certainly not their typical feeding strategy, as a majority of minkes track down their food through olfaction, it seems that when the opportunity arises, these whales aren't willing to turn down a free meal.